3 years after the Mediterranean swallowed his wife, Ronald Hartley walked the cobbled streets of Lisbon, carrying nothing but a worn passport and a ghost he couldn't outrun. He glanced through a cafe window and saw a woman whose profile he'd know in any light.
No, it can't be.
His hand froze halfway to his chest. The gold wedding band he never removed caught the sun. She stepped out, cradling a coffee cup, her hair shorter and darker, but the tilt of her chin was the same. Ronald fumbled for his phone, his thumb clumsy, and took a single photograph. She never looked up. She didn't see him, and he had no explanation.
I watched the Coast Guard search for 3 days. I buried an empty coffin.
By the time his legs remembered how to move, she had vanished around a corner. 3 years of grief, $1 million insurance payout, and a widow's quiet travels, all of it now balanced on a single impossible question. How? 3 years earlier, he had stood on a different deck, staring at the same indifferent sea, asking a question he couldn't answer. Catherine had vanished in the night. By sunrise, the Coast Guard was already sweeping the water with floodlights. They searched for 3 days. All they recovered was a single life ring, floating where the currents converged. The official report listed her as lost at sea, presumed drowned after an accidental fall. A small funeral was held at a seaside chapel. Ronald stood beside an empty casket, clutching a photograph of his wife.
I should have stayed on that deck with her. Maybe if I'd been there, she'd still be here.
The insurance company sent a check for $1.4 million. He signed the claim form with a hand that felt like it belonged to someone else. He donated a third to a maritime safety charity, the only act that felt like it meant anything, and closed their joint accounts. He sold the house, bought a one-way ticket, and spent the next 3 years drifting through foreign cities like a man trying to outrun a ghost. And now, in Lisbon, that ghost had finally surfaced in a cobblestone street, carrying a coffee cup and a lifetime of secrets. Ronald found a chair in the hotel lobby and sat down, his legs moving on instinct. The photograph on his phone stared back at him.
I buried an empty coffin. I signed a death certificate. None of it was real.
He remembered the insurance envelope, thick, official, containing a check for $1.4 million. He donated a third to a maritime safety charity. It had felt like the only honorable act in a sea of grief. Then he disappeared into airports and landlocked cities, never staying anywhere long enough to feel attached. Through every flight and every foreign bed, the gold wedding band stayed on his finger like an unbroken promise. Now, he pulled out the old wedding photograph. The faces in it belonged to strangers.
Who did I bury, Catherine? What else did you hide?
The photograph on his phone was proof. But proof of what? A ghost, a lie, or a crime? He didn't yet know.
She's alive. I saw her, and I will find out why.
Ronald pushed himself out of the lobby chair and stepped back into the warm Lisbon afternoon, his phone clutched tight. He walked the same cobblestones he had wandered hours before, scanning every face until he saw her again near the cafe. He stayed far enough back to blend into the crowd, close enough to see her check a watch she still wore on her left wrist. She turned into a narrow tiled entryway and disappeared behind a heavy wooden door. The number above it read 27. He waited a full minute, then approached the doorbell panel. A row of brass nameplates, one engraved, M. Costa. He photographed it, the camera shutter silent, and stepped back into the street with his first real lead. Back at the hotel, he opened his laptop and typed Costa Lisbon into the search bar. The results told him nothing useful.
Costa. Could be a married name, a cover. It's not enough. I need someone who can really dig.
That night, he called the concierge and asked for a recommendation. A private investigator, discreet, English-speaking. By morning, an appointment was set. The hunt for Catherine Hartley had officially begun. The following afternoon, Ronald stepped into a small office in Baixo. A dark-haired man in a pressed suit rose to shake his hand.
Senor Hartley, Miguel Oliveira, please, sit. Tell me what brings you here.
My wife. I think she faked her death. I saw her yesterday alive buying coffee.
Miguel picked up the phone, studying the image with a practiced stillness that spoke of years reading between the lines.
She uses a Portuguese name now? Costa. That is a start. I will need everything you have.
I have dates, the name of the cruise, the insurance file, whatever it takes.
Miguel opened a fresh case file and began listing the documents he would need.
Old photographs, marriage certificate, any family records. I will run the name through my channels.
They discussed fees, high but within Ronald's means. A retainer was signed, and the case officially gained a number. By the time Ronald left, the investigation was in motion. For the first time in 3 years, he felt a thread of control. 3 days later, Miguel Oliveira called Ronald back to his office. He had findings.
Senor Hartley, your Costa is indeed Catherine. She used her mother's maiden name, a Portuguese woman you never knew.
He slid an old photograph across the desk, a young woman with dark eyes and a Lisbon address on the back.
A Portuguese mother. She hid an entire family from me.
She renewed her Portuguese citizenship in 2017, quietly. A second passport, a backup life.
The citizenship document bore her photograph and a new name, Catarina Costa.
She planned this for years, and I never saw it.
Miguel showed him photographs of her apartment, modest, settled, with a coffee cup on the table like she'd never left.
Our whole marriage must have been a rehearsal for this disappearance.
Ronald had confirmation, but every answer opened a deeper void. The cruise, the insurance, the body, still unresolved. But Miguel wasn't finished. He opened another file, this one bearing a coroner's official stamp.
The body recovered from the Mediterranean 3 years ago. It was not your wife, Senor Hartley.
He slid a dental chart across the desk. The name at the top circled in red, Stephen Lucas.
Stephen Lucas. She mentioned him once, a former co-worker from years ago.
The dental records confirm it. That drowning victim was Stephen Lucas. His wife reported him missing the same week.
The cruise manifest placed him on board in a separate cabin, booked under a false company name 3 weeks before sailing.
They planned this together. She used his body to stage her own death.
This was no accident. Your wife and Stephen Lucas collaborated to fake her death, but he ended up dead.
The insurance claim, the charity donation, the empty coffin, all of it built on a lie involving a dead man.
She didn't just disappear. She left a body behind someone else's.
Miguel turned a page and tapped the life insurance policy. The beneficiary box was stark, Ronald Hartley.
The policy was in your name, Senor. She planned to disappear with the money, but it went to you instead.
All that grief, and she didn't profit a cent. I mourned her with her own betrayal money.
She's been living on Stephen Lucas's accounts. There's also a small savings account under her Portuguese name, funds she hid.
The crime was shoddy. The real motive couldn't be money. It had to be escape, a life she couldn't have with him.
What did I do that made faking her death seem easier than talking to me? Miguel, I need to hear it from her. No police, not yet. I want to look her in the eye.
He pictured a postcard, the cafe photograph, 3 words that would force her hand. It was a summons, not a threat.
She'll come. She'll have no choice but to explain.
The decision was made. Before the authorities, before Interpol, he would face his ghost on his own terms. In a quiet corner of his hotel room, Ronald wrote 3 words beneath the cafe photograph. I see you. He dropped the postcard into a red corner mailbox, his hand unexpectedly steady. 2 days later, Catherine Costa sorted through her mail and froze at the image of her own silhouette in a cafe window.
It's him. Ronald found me. After 3 years, after everything I staged.
The 3 words screamed his knowledge. Running now would only confirm his suspicions. She paced, then grabbed her phone and typed a single line. Madrid, Plaza Mayor, Saturday noon. Ronald received the message at his hotel desk, his jaw set as he booked a flight immediately. Catherine packed a small bag, her mind racing through explanations she knew he wouldn't accept.
I'll tell him it was the only way out. He has to understand.
Both left for Madrid, each carrying a version of the truth they desperately hoped the other would accept. Ronald landed in Madrid on a Saturday morning and bought a small digital recorder from an electronics shop near Puerta del Sol. He tested the device, let it run for a full minute, then slipped it into his jacket with a handkerchief to muffle any noise.
By noon, I'll have her voice on this thing. No more empty coffins.
Plaza Mayor was already filling with tourists and pigeons. He chose a bench facing the main arch. Catherine stepped off the train and walked into the Spanish heat, her sunglasses hiding eyes that hadn't slept.
Face him, explain, then leave. He won't go to the police. He's too sentimental.
Ronald checked his watch. 4 minutes to noon. His pulse matched the church bells echoing off the square. Then, through the crowd, he saw the woman who had haunted his grief and his insurance file. She moved with the practiced calm of someone who had been hiding for 3 years, but her hands were clenched at her sides. The recorder was still running. All that remained was for her to sit down. Catherine lowered herself onto the far end of the bench, her posture rigid. For a long moment, neither spoke.
Hello, Ronald. I wasn't sure you'd come. I almost didn't.
You look well for a dead woman. I buried an empty coffin. Catherine, how do you explain that?
She flinched at the word dead, but recovered quickly, her public smile sliding into place.
It's complicated. I was unhappy, Ronald. I needed to start over, and I didn't know how to tell you.
Ronald cut her off by turning his phone screen toward her. The cafe photograph filled it.
He has actual proof. That photograph changes everything. There's no talking my way out.
Her smile dissolved, replaced by a flicker of something raw and cornered.
3 years I mourned you. I donated a fortune to charity in your name, and you were buying coffee.
She had no answer. For the first time since Lisbon, Catherine looked like a woman with nowhere to run.
I know about your Portuguese mother, Catarina. The dual citizenship you renewed in secret. I hired an investigator.
You don't understand how trapped I felt. 30 years of the same routine, and you never saw me.
Ronald pulled out another photograph, a professional headshot of Stephen Lucas, clipped from a corporate directory.
That's Stephen. He was just a friend, a coworker. We were going to start over together.
Start over by using his body to fake your death. The Coast Guard spent days searching for you, and you let them find him.
It was an accident. He slipped on the wet deck. We panicked. I was scared, Ronald.
She was close to breaking, her justifications tangling like old rope.
His wife Elena has been searching for 3 years. She deserves the truth, don't you think?
Elena, I never meant for any of this. I just wanted to disappear, not hurt anyone.
Ronald watched her composure dissolve. The recording in his pocket captured every syllable. Tears traced lines through her makeup as Catherine finally surrendered to the truth she had buried at sea.
I planned it for months. Stephen and I were going to vanish, start over in Lisbon, split the insurance.
She sobbed into her hands, words pouring out faster than she could catch them.
But that night, he slipped. His head hit the railing. I tried to grab him, but he went under so fast.
And you chose to push his body away and let the world think it was you.
I panicked. I couldn't save him, so I used his body to fake my death. It was my only chance.
The insurance was a mistake. She planned to claim it as Catarina Costa, but the policy was in Ronald's name.
I lived on his accounts, a hidden savings. I never touched a cent of your money, Ronald. I swear.
Ronald stayed motionless, the confession heavy in the air. The recorder kept spinning. He offered no reaction. The device in his jacket still captured everything, and Catherine still didn't know. Ronald reached into his jacket and pulled out the small digital recorder, its red light still blinking.
Everything you just said, Catherine, the fraud, Stephen's death is on this device. The police are already on their way.
Catherine's face went pale. The color drained from her lips as she stared at the tiny machine.
He trapped me. The whole meeting was a setup. I've ruined everything.
She shot to her feet, eyes darting to the plaza exits like a cornered animal.
Ronald, please, give me a head start. I'll disappear forever. You'll never see me again.
Sit down, Catherine. It's over. 3 years of lies end right here.
She collapsed back onto the bench, the fight draining from her body. The church bells tolled 1 o'clock. The recorder kept running, catching every sob and every silence. Ronald sat motionless beside his wife, waiting for the sirens. The gold band on his finger caught the afternoon light. 2 plainclothes officers emerged from the eastern arch of Plaza Mayor and walked directly toward the bench. One officer extended his hand, and Ronald gave him the recorder, the red light still blinking. Catherine rose in silence and offered her wrists. The cold steel clicked shut. She didn't look back as they escorted her across the plaza, her shoulders finally slack.
3 years and it ends in handcuffs, not a funeral. I never thought I'd see this morning.
He looked down at the gold wedding band still circling his finger. It had never felt heavier.
I should take it off. But maybe not today. Today it's enough that it's over.
The plaza filled with tourists again, oblivious to the rupture that had just passed through. Ronald stood, slipped the backup recorder into his coat, and walked away from the bench without looking back. The afternoon sun slanted across the tiles, and the old man who had once buried an empty coffin finally had a body to lay to rest. From his hotel room, Ronald called Elena Lucas, the widow who had searched for Stephen for 3 years.
Mrs. Lucas, my name is Ronald Hartley. I knew your husband. I have information about his death.
About Stephen? The police stopped returning my calls years ago. What could you possibly know?
I know he didn't disappear voluntarily. He was on a cruise with my wife. She staged her death using his body.
Elena's breath caught. The photograph of Stephen on her coffee table seemed to stare back at her.
You're telling me he didn't just vanish? He was murdered?
It was an accident, but she covered it up. Catherine was arrested today in Madrid. She confessed everything.
Elena covered her mouth, tears spilling onto the phone. 3 years of waiting dissolved into a single ragged sob.
Thank you for telling me. For not letting him be just a missing person. Thank you.
Ronald closed his eyes. The line stayed open, 2 strangers bound by a crime and an ocean. A Lisbon court processed the case swiftly. The confession left little room for argument. The judge ordered the seizure of all assets under the name Caterina Costa, everything she'd hidden. The insurance company began repayment proceedings. The $1.4 million policy would be fully clawed back. Ronald read the registered letter and set it aside. The math worked out cleanly.
Justice on paper, but there's no satisfaction in watching numbers move from one column to another.
The maritime charity kept his earlier donation, a small, unintended good in a sea of fraud. He filed every document, closed every account, and stared at the gold band still circling his finger.
She'll be in a Portuguese cell for years, but I'm the one still wearing the evidence of a lie.
He booked a flight back to the States, with no return ticket. The case was closed, but the silence that followed settled heavier than any grief he'd known. 1 week after the court ruling, Ronald met Elena Lucas at a cemetery outside Boston. Stephen's grave had a new headstone, and fresh flowers lay at its base.
I planted them myself. It felt like the first real thing I could give him in 3 years.
They walked to a nearby bench, the fresh dirt still on their shoes, and sat in the dappled shade of an old oak.
He deserved better than what happened. We both did, just not in the same way.
You still wear it. After everything she did,
Taking it off would mean admitting I loved a lie for 30 years. I'm not there yet. Old habits. Or maybe I'm waiting for the right moment.
That afternoon, in his silent living room, he placed the wedding photograph on the coffee table and sat across from it like an interrogator.
We looked happy, but I can't tell anymore if any of it was real or just a performance.
He slipped the ring off, set it beside the photograph, and didn't put it back on. Not a rejection, just a pause. A week later, Ronald stood at the harbor's edge and watched a cruise ship drift from the dock. He felt no pull to board, only a deep, exhausted relief that his feet were on dry land.
I used to think the sea was freedom. Now I know it's just another hiding place.
He turned from the water and walked to the Maritime Safety Charity's annual fundraiser. For an afternoon, he handed out waterproof safety cards to couples planning their first cruise.
They don't know what these decks can hide, but maybe this card will make them a little safer.
That evening, he walked alone along the shoreline, the tide licking the soles of his loafers.
The sea takes, it took her, and it took Stephen. I won't give it the chance to take me.
He made a quiet promise to himself, simple and absolute, no more cruises. The ocean would remain a horizon, never again a passage. At sunrise, Ronald stood on the rocky shore, the copper and rose lights spreading across the water. Waves struck the rocks below, but he felt no urge to leave dry land.
3 years ago, this sea was a grave. Now it's just water.
The salt spray stung, but the stone under his shoes was solid.
Maybe closure isn't an ending, just a place to stand without falling.
He breathed deep, the cold air clearing his lungs, and let the silence settle. The waves would keep crashing. The world would spin. But he had stopped running.
I didn't forgive her, I never will, but I can stop carrying the weight.
The sun climbed higher, and he turned his back to the ocean. Nothing left for him there. He walked inland, the gold ring still in his pocket, the sea just a backdrop at last. Back in his study, Ronald stood among bookshelves in silence. The room hadn't changed since the cruise. He walked to the table and picked up the wedding photograph he had stared at so many times.
I don't need to burn it, I just don't need to see it every day.
He slid the photograph into a desk drawer, not hidden, not destroyed, just put away. The empty space on the table felt right, a cleared surface for whatever came next. Ronald crossed to the window and pushed it open. The afternoon air flooded in, cool and clean. Sunlight cut across the floor, warming the wood and chasing out the lingering stillness.
It's just a room now, not a memorial.
He stood there for a long moment, watching the dust drift in the light. Then he turned away and left the window open, letting the outside in. Some truths sink, others float. Ronald chose to let the truth surface, and in doing so, freed more than just himself. The cafe in Lisbon still serves coffee to strangers. The woman who once paused at its counter will not return. His journey began with a ghost in a window and ended with an open door. The sea will always hold its secrets, but one man walked away knowing his. Not every story has justice. Not every wound heals clean, but the truth has weight, and Ronald finally laid it down. He stopped wearing the ring, not out of anger, but because he no longer needed a reminder of what he already understood. The cruise ships still sail, the Mediterranean still glitters, and he walks on solid ground. If you ever walk through Lisbon and glance into a cafe, you might see nothing more than a coffee cup. But for one man, it was enough to turn 3 years of lies into a single, undeniable truth. And with that truth, he walked away.